Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Thursday, March 30th. We've got the Florida Pro Day coming up today. Obviously got the hat on, hoping the boys go out there and have themselves a day, but that's not what we're here to talk about right now. We've got Jekalyn Roy, LSU defensive tackle. The Jaguars, they met with him privately after his workout, and so they're showing interest in this guy, this 22-year-old defensive tackle out of LSU. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the tape, talk about why Jekalyn Roy might be drawing interest from the Jacksonville Jaguars and where they could potentially look to select him in the draft, what he could do for the Jaguars at the next level. Former four-star recruit, 6'3", about 300 pounds, 32 3/4 arms at the combine, 10 1/8 hands. Did not run at the combine, but he did run at his pro day. 5'1", 340 at his size, pretty damn impressive. And the athleticism, the quickness, the speed, it does show up on tape. 22-year-old kid, again, former four-star recruit, played in 31 career games, 97 total tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 3 fumble recoveries. The numbers, they do not pop off the page, right? And so you have to dive into what this prospect really is all about, what he brings to the table. 59 pressures on 661 pass rush snaps over the last 2 seasons. Not incredible pressure production, but you do see a good amount of pressure when you pull him up on tape. And so I think that's why the Jags are interested here. He has the potential, the skill set, to be an interior penetrator in the Jaguars defensive front at the next level. And you look at his tape, he was significantly better in 2021 than 2022. Why is that? Pretty simple answer. LSU, Brian Kelly, they played him at nose in 2022. 300-pounder playing nose, at his skill set, that's not what you want. He played nose as much as he did 3-tech in 2022. They're asking him to hold up at the point against double teams. That's not his game. Not at all. You go back to 2021 where he's aligned more in a penetration role, more of a 3-tech type player, and you see massive production from a pressure standpoint. In 2022, again, when he was playing nose, you see the drop off in the pressure rate and the sack rate and the hit rate. But if you look at that 2021 tape, you look at those 2021 numbers, I think that's who you're projecting to the next level. You're not projecting this guy to play nose tackle. You're projecting him to be an interior penetrator. So I can't for the life of me figure out why LSU decided to play him at nose tackle so much this year. I mean, he had over 240 reps at nose tackle for the LSU Tigers in 2022, a guy who just should not be put in that position. And so I feel bad for the kid. He went out there and did his best, but that's not the role he's going to play at the next level. But when you see him at 3-tech, lined up more in a spot where you're going to see him trying to penetrate instead of hold up against double teams and such, you've seen him be able to use his quickness, his leverage, and his hands to dispatch interior offensive linemen and knife into the backfield at times, right? And you see that much more consistently in 2021, racking up those quarterback pressures, racking up those quarterback hits, being really disruptive. And you see a little bit of a pass rush arsenal. He's got a really violent club that he's able to use and shoot across gaps and just, again, get into the backfield really, really quickly. But you're not getting a prospect at this point who's going to take on double teams at the next level. You don't want him doing that. That's not why you're drafting Jekalyn Roy. Definitely more in that interior penetrator mold. Strength appears to be an issue at times. He gets driven off the ball. But again, I think that's more so in situations where he's lined up at nose and he's just not in a position to succeed. But he did put up 30 on the bench, which is pretty impressive. Perhaps with a little time with Brinson Buckner here in Jacksonville, this kid could take a step forward in the run defense department and further refine his pass rush skill set, provide a spark potentially as a rotational rusher for the Jags. Personally, I'd be looking at him on day 3. Again, the thing is where and when and who else is available. There's a lot of really talented interior defensive linemen who I think project to be interior penetrators at the next level in this class. So where do you value him? Where do the Jaguars value him? Who else is on the board when the Jaguars are picking? For me, I would not be shocked ultimately if Jekalyn Roy does end up going in the third round, because his tape as a penetrator, it is really good. You just have to understand why it wasn't as pretty in 2022. He's being played out of position, playing way too much damn nose tackle. I cannot for the life of me figure out why Brian Kelly and company decided to do that to him at LSU in 2022. But I hope for Jekalyn Roy's sake at the next level, wherever he goes, that he's in a role that suits his skill set a lot more than the role he was forced into in 2022. But he has potential, he has talent, he has the skill set to be, at the very least, a rotational interior rusher to start his career. And I think you could see him blossom into a really, really disruptive three tech who starts for a team down the road. And so for me, again, I'm looking at him in the third round, and that is also based on the fact that there's so many other guys who I value as interior penetrators in this class. And I said third round. I meant third day of the draft, but I could see a team pulling the trigger in the third round, which would be day 2. But for me, definitely a day 3 guy. The 2022 tape, maybe some people don't want to dig into why it wasn't as good. Maybe they're just like, oh, this guy fell off. Maybe they're not going to try to dive into what the reasoning behind that was, and that could see him fall down the board. I think if the Jaguars want to select him at some point on day 3, that he could potentially be a really, really solid pick for them, and a guy who could help out Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, right? They need more interior penetration. You have Roy Robertson Harris, who's a good interior penetrator. You need more. And I think Jekalyn Roy could definitely do that for the Jaguars. They've been showing interest in a lot of interior defensive linemen, guys who could potentially create pressure from the middle of that defensive line. And so I think at some point in the draft, you're going to see the Jaguars taking one of these guys. Could be Jekalyn Roy. We'll see how it all plays out. Thank you so much for tuning in, Duval. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Let me know what you think. You can also follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Check out genjag.com. Pick up some new Duval gear. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. And if you're on your podcast platform of choice, please subscribe and review. We could not be doing this without your support. Thanks so much, Duval.